I'm going to welcome everybody back to the Athlete Connection. I think you're probably one of the guests I'm really interested in speaking with. I was listening to your podcast. Really enjoy your energy, your personality. So
Oh, thank you.
I want to welcome to the show Miss Erica McCall. So tell everybody, where are you right now?
I'm currently in Salamanca, Spain. It's about 2 hours from Madrid, and a 9 hour time difference from currently where you are staying.
Got it. So you're already what, Monday right now? Monday after practice today, or was today your day off?
Sunday. So we're still on Sunday. So it's
Okay.
9 p.m.
Oh, 9 p.m.
Centrally.
Sunday. You're right. You're right.
Yep.
You're right. My days are all mixed up too. Cool.
All good.
Well, thanks again for taking the time, and shout out to Jillian for connecting us. That was one of
Yes.
the tasks that I had, and again, I'm really excited that she put you on. So, real quick for all of our listeners, and maybe even for you, wanted to kind of create this platform for the younger athletes because you and I both know there's not always that person there to kind of give you that guidance, or really the kind of that blueprint of what to expect as you're working your way up the ranks. The expectation, the hard work, all those things. So that's definitely what I'm excited to kind of talk with you about. And you are kind of in that minority, kind of have that experience to kind of work your way up from high school to pro, or even college, then pro, and obviously making your way overseas, which is kind of what I want to get into a little bit. But just want to share with everyone a little bit of your background. Were you born in Bakersfield?
Born and raised. Yes.
Okay, Cali, let's go. Born and raised in Bakersfield, went to Stanford, graduated Stanford, and got drafted into the WNBA. So, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about that journey and really kind of how you worked your way up to obviously where you're at now.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a basketball family. My dad's been a basketball coach literally my whole life. When I was a child, he was coaching at a JC, at Taft, California, and then he went on to become the assistant coach with Cal State University Bakersfield on the women's side, and then leveled up to the head coach. So he's been a coach my entire life. My sister Dewana Bonner, who's also plays in the WNBA, seeing her being able to move on from, like you said, high school to college to the pros, I was honestly really privileged to be able to experience her growth. So I wanted to be just like my sister. I wanted to play basketball, and I had a great dad, a great coach, to allow me the skills to be able to get to where I am today. So shout out to my dad, shout out to my sister. They inspired me to do this basketball thing, and so from a young age, I really just took to it. I fell in love with it. And my dad was there through every step of the way. He could never be my official coach, but he was like always coming to all my practices, like going to all my games. Even when I was all the way at Stanford. So it was a lot of fun. And then, I mean, getting to Stanford was a dream come true. I mean, playing for one of the best coaches, to ever coach the game, and be able to go to one of the best universities in the world was I always say it's the best of both worlds, to be able to do that. So being able to be coached by her, just learn the tools to become a champion, to become a leader, that allowed me to move on up. And we made two Final Fours during my time there, three Pac-12 championships, I believe. So we were well accomplished at Stanford, and my ability to be able to lead and to score and to rebound, all that good stuff, allowed me to get to the league, and overseas. And so here I am now. I played for the Indiana Fever for 3 years, along with the Atlanta Dream for a small stint, the Minnesota. Wow, can't think of the Minnesota Lynx, Minnesota Lynx, and then on to Washington, where I finished up. And currently, I'm in Salamanca, Spain. So it's a little bit about my basketball journey.
That's a
small
that's
clip.
that's a great journey though. But I mean, I think it's important, and really wanted to give you that platform to kind of talk with you about it because I know similar to your story, there's a lot of female athletes such as yourself that kind of have that aspirations, and you know fortunate for you, you kind of had your sister and your dad to kind of help you with that guidance and that blueprints. But you and I both know that not everybody kind of has that. I don't want to say that luxury, but that opportunity to kind of, let you know up front, like, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what you don't need to do. So, kind of talk a little bit about that influence and kind of how they helped impact those decisions that you made going to Stanford and moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's something that's beautiful within my sisterhood. with my sister is the ability for me to be able to look up at her and kind of resemble some of the decisions she's made, but also create my own path. And she encourages that. And so that was really cool. My sister, she stayed at home too. So she's originally from Birmingham, Alabama, which is where my dad is from. So she ended up going to Auburn University. And so I'm sure she could have went to UConn. She could have went to, the places that Mississippi State, all those good places, but she decided she wanted to stay home. And so I kind of, followed that same path where I know I wanted to stay home in California. I had chances to, play all around the country. But I knew Stanford was the place for me. And for my dad, that's kind of a unique experience because he is a D1 college coach. So he actually recruited me, as his
Ouch.
daughter. Yeah. So, he sent me, I got letters from him, conversations with him and stuff like that saying, how, I could, have the best opportunity to play for him and, really become successful because honestly, I've always thought that my dad is the best coach for me. He knows my game the best. So I truly did, consider it. I just didn't want to stay home. I just knew that, Bakersfield's a small town and I really wanted to be able to branch out and go to a bigger school like Stanford. And so that's kind of what encouraged me, to get out there. And of course, like he was a little hurt. I mean, who, who doesn't want to hear, that their daughter doesn't want to go play for them, but he understood. He was really excited for my opportunities there. And in the end, I think he was really happy with my decision, him and my sister.
That's interesting because, again, previous guests, even myself, like everyone's journey for recruiting or being recruited is completely different. And again, you're in that unique position where you're being recruited by your pops. So that's
Yeah.
that's funny. I'm curious, like how'd you break the news that you weren't gonna go there?
If I remember correctly, I really think like we were in a drive-through and he was talking about it. And I was like, yeah, I just don't, I want to go somewhere bigger, I want to, and I know dad that you'll be able to provide like crazy opportunities for me to be able to play, against you. I think my game would go to the next level, but, I just want to go somewhere bigger, where I feel like I can accomplish certain things I want to do in life and in the ball area. So he was like, all right, I understand.
That's
So,
good.
yeah.
But I mean, and you kind of touched on something that I speak to, or we speak to some of our athletes about. It's like you got to kind of understand that, outside of just being recruited, you have to put yourself in that best situation for yourself. You're only going to be competing in your sport, 2 to 3 months out of that year. The rest of it's going to be school, practice, training, environment, community outreach, all those things. So, you know, how did you know at such an early age, or really at that point, that that's what you wanted to do versus, the homers, so to speak, where it's like, nah, I won't be in the best position if I go that much further away from my house. You know what I mean?
hmm Yeah, I think at a young age, I mean, my parents just, I mean, I think kind of naturally, I just kind of been a very studious person. But as I gotten older, I realized that my studies were just really important for me to go on, to big places in life. And so when I had the opportunity to get into Stanford, I was like, wow, you
Yeah,
know,
right. That's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So my mom was hyped, everyone was really excited for me, but I just honestly didn't even know too much about Stanford till my sophomore year of high school.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because my next question is like the expectation, and I ask every guest that I have on the show because I know, again, my experience when I got there, I had no idea really what to expect, and that's kind of one of the reasons, again, why I wanted to have this podcast because you know we only know what we know up to that point of us being recruited. Then once you sign that letter, it's like, okay, we'll see you when you check in. But once you check in, it's like a different ball game. So talk a little bit about your experience and your expectation. That first year going into that second year.
Yeah, my freshman year, I really thought that I was big boss and I was going to get all this playing time. I was like California, Gatorade Player of the Year.
Right.
So he had all these, really cool awards and stuff like that. So you walk in thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna get some good playing time. I'm playing on this team that they just had went to the Final Four, the previous year,
A
and
powerhouse.
man,
Yeah.
powerhouse. With the of course Boomer case, I was going to play with Shanae Boomer case, so I was like, man, this is going to be an amazing experience. And it was an amazing experience, but it was not how I expected it to be.
Right.
I definitely had some freshman woes. It was me and my teammate Kylie Jane, um, and we were like twins, like we always messed up. So they would say like Kylie and Bird, and I always screaming Kylie and Bird, because we were always messing up. So at one time, we created the nickname Curd because
It was both of you guys.
yeah. So we were messing up left and right. It was like you think that you're gonna get something so quickly, and it takes time. It really took, and honestly, it took probably until my junior year for things to like really click for me, to get to the point where I was like, all right, cool, like I can be a very dominant, player in college. But it took some time for me, and I didn't expect that much time it was going to take for me to be able to adapt to the college game.
Yeah, and again, it's like we were just talking with Sean Marshall, who played at Boston College, went on to play pro as well from the IE. But we were just talking about that same thing. It's like you have this expectation based on your current experience, but once you get there, you're playing against pretty much kind of grown men, grown women, and
Yeah.
the speed of play, the amount of plays, like the amount of knowledge that you have to start to learn at such a rapid pace, like that. That's one thing that you just can't anticipate. So I think that's definitely spot on what you're saying. Like there's an adjustment period, and
Oh,
unless
facts.
unless you're just that, I always call it that 1%, right? Where you can just come in and you're just like, you're that talent. You can pick up things quickly. You're just dominating, like the LeBrons of
Yes.
the world and all the
Yes.
Kobe's and all those people. But like, not everybody's like that. But that's
Right.
what we see. But that's not going to be the result that you're going to get nine
Right.
times out of 10. So,
Right.
but that's cool. So transition to your WNBA experience. So like, how did you prepare for that? And what was that expectation? Obviously, once you made it to that next level.
So probably like my junior year, like that's when I really knew I'm like, okay, I have, a good opportunity to be able to make the league. And that's honestly since my junior high school, that's been my goal. And I've kind of trained for that. I got to see my sister do it. So I was like, I want to be like that. I need to take the proper steps. And honestly, going to Stanford was one of the steps. I knew they were, world-renowned school, for ball and for academics. And I knew that Tyra would be able to get my name and push my name out there. So that was
Right.
like one big step, was going to Stanford, and be able to get to the league. And then when I was in Stanford, I like took the proper academic steps to like be able to get to the league, because I knew that if I was going to get drafted, I had to be able to finish school a quarter early in order to be able to just have a good WNBA experience without having doing school and all that stuff, crazy stuff like that. So my freshman year, I took more classes because I knew I needed to finish school early. And then for the basketball realm, I mean, that took longer than what I expected. But I had great coaches that communicated with me day in and day out, encouraging me that I could get to that next level. And I put in the work like crazy. I remember my freshman year, and I just think of how crazy I was now that I would never do that. I was like, freshman year, I woke up at 6 in the morning and went to go, shoot 500 shots before class and stuff like that, because I just wanted it so bad. And then by the time, sophomore year rolled around, I learned that you can shoot after practice. Just
You're like,
later.
why did I do that?
And I was like, why did I, but you just want it so bad your freshman year.
But
And
those are
so
those things that I'm saying. Like you don't
yeah,
know until you know, and then once you
yeah,
sort of kind of get yourself acclimated, it's like, okay, now I can figure out what I can do, or now I can figure out, hey, this is what I was doing, and this is not what was working out. So it's like
yeah.
it takes that learning curve where it's all about that expectation. So you're right.
So yeah, I mean, I really, I mean, of course, with the practice and games, but I really the work I put in, like outside of that, I don't think I took much days off in college. Probably why I got bad knees now, but, but I mean, I put in the proper work, to get to the next level. And so when I finally got to the league, I don't think I really had much expectations for what I thought the league was going to be about. I mean, of course, I wanted to win a championship because I saw my sister win a championship. So of course I wanted to be like that. But going into it, I was the only rookie on my team, so I was thrown into the fire rapidly, and I was honestly day by day, I was in for the ride. That was my expectation for
Take it all
my
in.
rookie year. I was just taking it all in, and we had a crazy season. It was the year after Tamika Catchings retired, so it was a whole new identity of the team, new coach, all that good stuff. So we weren't very successful my rookie season, and that was my first time in my career losing that much consistently. So that was definitely tough. Like I remember when we lost our first game, and in college when you lose, it's like the end of the world. Everyone is somber, everyone is quiet on the bus, like you don't speak. When you go to practice the next day, everyone is like so focused and so, so ready, to get better.
Right.
And in the league, it's like we lost, everyone was laughing, laughing on the bus. I was like, oh my gosh,
Oh,
like
this is different.
why are you guys not upset that we just lost? Like
Right.
this is crazy. And so that was a huge thing for me. I was like, wow, like people bounce back quick in the league, but you have to,
Right.
because we play so many games. We play like every 2-3 days. You can't just sit on a loss for that long. And so that's something that I definitely had to learn my rookie season. That was a big lesson for me.
Yeah, and that's funny you say that because I'm looking at, so I play soccer, but obviously I love sports. I watch any sports, it doesn't really matter. And I'm looking at, the athletes, their body language, all those things. It was like the Lakers right now, they're 2-10.
Yeah.
And, just hearing conversation about, why is this person doing this? Why is this person doing that? It's like, well, you relate it to your regular, 9 to 5. If you have a bad day on a Tuesday, you don't go on a Wednesday. You're still thinking about Tuesday. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's on to the next one. So that mental is really important to kind of, have that short-term memory.
Thanks.
How does that affect you, from that, mental preparation standpoint, like going from being, highly competitive to obviously still competitive, but just that transition, like how was that mental preparation?
Oh, great question. It's tough, honestly, like especially like your rookie season, because like you said, there's that 1%, or maybe you get to the league, it's a little higher, but of rookies that play, and so like for me,
Right.
I was having to learn all these expectations, but I wasn't playing, as much as, we were losing, but I still wasn't playing. And so that
Right.
was tough for me to adjust my mindset to. I'm like, okay, how do I prepare myself? Knowing I'm probably not going to get that many minutes. And we're not, winning. And so that was tough for me to learn. And honestly, I had to learn that my 3 years in Indiana. We had losing seasons all 3 years while I was there. And so I learned that I really had to adjust my mindset when I was doing my extra workouts with my coaches when I was in practice. Like those are like my games for me. I'm like, this is how I become
Right.
better in practice, because I know, I'm not really getting the playing time to be able to grow my game. So I really have to lock in on these practices, on these extra workouts, to allow myself to still be competitive.
And I think it's interesting because you're still learning that at the highest level in this
Yeah.
country, right? So it's like I think that's one thing that young athletes could definitely benefit from at any level that they're at, right? Like high school level, you might be the worst player on your team, you might be the best player on the team, but I think if you can develop that foundation early, like it'll help you, like Sean said on the last episode, like every level, you're almost like you're hitting the reset button and you're just back to that drawing board and you're trying to figure it out. Okay, how do I figure out, okay, what I need to do day to day to be successful, to put myself on a good position to be successful. And I think in basketball, even more so than any sport, like you said, if you're not playing, even if you are playing, if you're not in that starting 5 rotation, you're gonna get like what, a minute, 2 minutes in and out. You know what I mean? So it's not like that sample size is not like a big opportunity for you to get in, go 10 for 12 or something like that. Like it's gonna be a short window. So that's cool. I'm glad you mentioned obviously that experience, because I was curious and I was talking with Jillian about this a little bit, and I've noticed that especially in female sports, a lot of WNBA players play overseas, and obviously, Brittany Griner is the biggest one in the media now with what's happening with her, and they're talking about, well, why was she even over there to begin with? Like, talk a little bit about the salary and why you guys go off season to go overseas.
Yes. So I mean, that's just really a part of the women's game. I mean, now it's kind of evolved. So it's really cool to be able to see, younger players just know like, I can make money with this NIL deals, to be, and then still play in the league and be cool. I don't have to go overseas. But I feel old saying this, but when I was playing, that was not
back in the day.
Not the idea, right? It was only 5 years ago, but sheesh.
Right.
But when I was playing, that was not like, I knew that was a part of the expectation. And granted, I knew that from my sister. I'm like, she plays overseas, she plays in WA. That is just part of what women's basketball players do. And so when I was coming to the league, we probably made like, my rookie salary, I made like 40,000, for 3 months, which is in America standards, like for, average person, 3 months, that much money, that's great. Right. However, we're not working for, if you don't work for another 9 months out of the
Months
year,
out of the year, right?
it's hard to sustain. So that's why we have to go overseas. And granted, those salaries have risen now with the new CBA, but we got to go overseas, to be able to make our money, and to, if you want to live a comfortable life, we go overseas and we make a second income, and it's where we get a majority of our money. It's where I get a majority of my money, and so yeah, it's just a part of the deal. It's a part of the lifestyle.
How are you received as a professional baller overseas versus
Mhm.
how you're received over here? Like again, I played soccer, so I always tell people if you're not really familiar with it or don't really follow it, like go watch international games so you can see
Oh yeah.
why just the passion is completely different. So like how
Mhm.
different are you received as a female basketball player versus, over here as a WNBA player? Like how's that atmosphere?
Oh, it's so much better. I always feel like I'm so much more appreciated overseas. The women's game at least is appreciated overseas than in the States. I played in Hungary for 4 years, and the atmospheres that I played in, coming in, even though the arenas weren't that big, and you probably, if you put the amount of fans that we had in Hungary compared to, in a WNBA arena, it would
Right.
that would be absolutely empty. But just being in those arenas with those fans, and then the way that they pack the gym, the way that they love, the way they have so much passion for the game, it's incredible. Especially going to Turkey, man, it is crazy in Turkey. Like
Yeah.
I've never experienced that kind of passion for sports in general. Turkey is that's just the Turkish lifestyle. I'm sure you've seen that watching some soccer games out there. How crazy it is.
Yeah, I was like my rookie season. We went to Brazil for our preseason, and we went to a rival game. It was like Corinthians and Sao Paulo, which is like I don't know the Clippers and the Lakers type of rivalry, and they had
Yeah.
concrete stadium, and they were shaking the concrete. And I'm sitting here
Yes.
like I've seen it, I know about it, but just being there firsthand, like you're right, just like the atmosphere is so much crazier. So
Yeah.
like I always think again, like I'm looking at athletes and analyzing, why, and I see that like you probably get the love is so much greater versus over here, and then you don't have to deal with the adversary and all those things that you kind of deal with all over
Yeah.
here. So it's like I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that, which you kind of were right along with what I was thinking. So
Yeah.
you validated that.
For sure.
So if you were to ideally play, like, what do you think is kind of the best country overseas? Or if there's a younger athlete that's like, you know what, maybe I'm going to consider, that overseas game. Like, where's a
Mhm.
good place for them to kind of get their feet wet?
Oh man, there's so many markets overseas. But some of the best in terms of women's basketball who have the best leagues. The Spanish league is really good. The Hungarian league is coming up. The Turkish league is up there. Um, and the French league. So those are probably the four in Europe that probably have some of the best leagues. But the markets are huge. So I mean, there's places where I've had teammates play in Sweden, in Switzerland, smaller countries that honestly do have really good leagues, and that can be good for you to be able to come up and be able to develop your game and grow. I mean, it's really cool to see even now in Puerto Rico and in Mexico, they had a really good league this season with some pretty big names that I was surprised. And so like the women's
Mm,
game is growing all across the world.
right.
And so you got to find the right market for you. Of course, that comes with getting a good agent. And but once you find that and you be able to develop your game, you can go to some really high places in the women's basketball game.
Cool. That's great. That's great feedback. Hopefully, again, anyone who's listening, whoever's listening, they can kind of open up a door for them just to kind of shed some new light on
Oh yeah.
just different opportunities. Because again, you never know, what might work out for you, or
Yeah.
what kind of help you out in the long run. So talk a little bit about your podcast. I'm really curious about it because I know
Yes.
I have my podcast, and it's like connecting with the athletes, the younger athlete. But I really
Yes.
like what you're doing. So talk a little bit about that and how you got that started.
Thank you. My podcast is called Bird's Eye View. It's about women's basketball. It's about the game. When I first started it, I solely focused on the overseas game because a lot of people always ask me, Erica, what's overseas like? What's the food like? The coaching like, the basketball like? So I was like, I'm gonna start a podcast to kind of educate fans, on what we have to experience as women's basketball players. And with this second season that I finished up a couple of months ago, I kind of broadened it up and allowed just women's basketball players to just tell their story, and usually that encompasses overseas because that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
So Yes, 2 seasons in, and it's been a blast, and I've been able to gain a pretty cool fan base. I just love women's basketball fans. It's been really cool to be able to see how that the fan bases have evolved, especially through the internet, and Twitter has been absolutely amazing. I think the game has been able to grow through social media, and so it's been really cool to be able to interact with people and be able to bring some of my women's basketball friends on the podcast and for them to be able to share their stories because I mean everyone has a different story. No one is the same. Some people are struggling. Some people have absolutely thrived. I hear different crazy overseas stories. That's one of my favorite questions for my show as I ask them, what's your craziest overseas stories? And I've gotten some wild ones. I've gotten some safe ones. But overall, it's hilarious.
That's cool. Yeah. Cause I appreciate hearing other people's journeys. Cause the same thing you mentioned, like everyone's journey is different and they all have the different perspective, story, experiences, all those things. Who was your favorite guest? I would say because of what you just mentioned.
Oh man, my favorite guest. Wow. Let me think. Brittany Sykes was pretty fun. She was a really fun guest to have. Her stories were crazy, and she's just a hilarious person. And you were able to see kind of the ups and downs of her career. Another amazing guest that I had that was up there for one of my faves was my teammate Carly Samuelson. We were able to talk about our Stanford days, and that was really fun. Actually, really, a lot of the fans enjoyed that. She was actually like one of my most downloaded, podcast.
Right.
So that one was a lot of fun. So the second season has probably been my favorite for sure.
That's cool. Yeah. And I like it because again, you said it. It's like people are curious, right? Like what's that experience like, through your eyes versus reading it somewhere. You never really know what you're going to pick up off the internet. So I really like that because I think a lot of people can learn if they're truthful about it, right? Like if they're listening in,
Oh,
like
for
you can
sure.
actually learn from some of those things. And I think it's definitely can be helpful. But what's your craziest overseas story? Has anybody asked you? Have you told that?
Yes, actually, on my very first episode, I asked, actually one of my best friends, Sydney Weiss, what was her craziest overseas story, and she was like, "Well, what's yours?" So, mine is definitely having an overseas boyfriend. I had an overseas boyfriend for like 2 days. He was a young buck.
Two
Yes,
days.
two
Okay.
days. Yes, he was a young buck. He hardly spoke any English, and he just completely fell in love with me. And so that was quite an interesting
And
dynamic
then
to
and then
have.
you left the country and you left him high and dry.
I had to break up. I had to end it because he was completely in love. I was like, I cannot do. He wanted me to meet his mom and his sister already day two. I was like, oh no, I'm sorry, I have to cut this off. But he was so sweet.
That's funny. Well,
He was so sweet.
hopefully he doesn't listen to that episode or this episode.
But he's not gonna be able to understand it. So
We're good. We're good then. We got it
he
covered.
he solely spoke Hungarian, so we
There
are
you
good.
go. So I noticed she's kind of one of my favorite artists on here. You did a performance live with Miss Carrie Underwood, who's one of
Yes.
my favorite artists. How was that experience? How was she as a person? I'm curious.
Oh man, she was amazing. As a person, like you could tell the hard work that she puts in from, the concerts that she puts on. Like I had never been to a Carrie Underwood concert before, my performance with her. And I was just in awe of like how like she just has so much energy in the way that she draws in the fans. It was really cool to experience. And then after I performed with her, like just how gracious she was. And then like I think the favorite part of my experience interacting with her was like she just finished this 2-hour concert, is sweating, like she was taking pictures with me and my, teammates, and then she had to go breastfeed one of her children. And I was
Hmm.
like, women are freaking amazing. Like, that is so dope. She's such a hard
Right.
worker.
That's cool. Well, I'm gonna claim our 6 degrees of separation. And since you know her, I'm gonna tell everybody that I know her. So we're connected.
There you go. There
Cool.
you
So
go.
last question that I always kind of like to end off on, I wouldn't say if you change anything different, but like knowing the experiences that you had and knowing that there's going to be young athletes listen to this, like what advice, what perspective would you give, as they're about to embark on this journey or maybe they're trying to, like, what do you think is the best sort of advice to kind of get the ball rolling for them? Whether it's going to high school, going to college, or somebody that's, middle of college trying to figure it out, like what would you tell them?
Yeah, I would say never take the game too seriously. And even sometimes I have to tell that, advice to myself, as a pro these days, because I put myself through so much heartbreak and so much pain, because I was like, I gotta be great. Like I want it so bad. Like, and when it doesn't happen, you're just completely disappointed, And it's because I was like, I wanted, sometimes that's all I thought about was basketball. How can I be better? How can I be more minutes? How can I, score all these, certain points? And, I just completely broke my heart sometimes. And I was going through a tough time with that, especially in my third year. And, once I didn't take basketball as much seriously and just thought about, it's a game that I love, that I enjoy. It allowed me to really, enjoy the game so much better, enjoy life so much better, And so that's what I would definitely give advice to younger players out there. Don't take the game too seriously. Remember why you fell in love with it. Keep it light and keep it fun. Always have fun. Cliche, but I'm
But
telling
true.
you.
Yeah, but
But
true, right?
advice much needed. Yes.
Yeah, cool. Well, once again, Miss Erica McCall, we appreciate you taking the
Thank
time.
you.
If you don't mind, I know I dropped in your social media, but if you don't mind, if anyone has any thoughts, questions, concern, um, feel free. Obviously, I'm granting everybody access to your IG, but I always like to kind of extend our network to those younger athletes, because again, if it's a way for us to connect these athletes with anyone directly to kind of help them out, I think it's definitely beneficial for all of us. So again, I took the liberty, if you don't mind, of dropping your Instagram on here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Um,
No, my DMs are always open, and I'm really love to interact with people if they have any questions or anything. So hit me up.
Appreciate it. We have our youth mentor program. So I'm definitely going to hit you up in the future as we
For
look
sure.
to expand that to kind of speak directly to some kids. So be on the lookout for that.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Cool. Well, that's a wrap for us. Again, for everyone's listening, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, all those things that Miss Erica knows about. And until next time, we'll see you soon.
See you guys. Thank
See
you.
ya. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right.